What happens when a veteran TV host tries to control the narrative, and a global superstar refuses to back down? In one shocking live moment on The View, Joy Behar pushed too far, Jennifer Lopez fired back harder, and within minutes, the studio fell silent as the confrontation spiraled into a public meltdown that ended with Joy storming off the show forever. The studio lights at The View were already blazing when the doors opened and Jennifer Lopez walked in. Everything looked perfect on the surface. Jennifer stepped onto the stage with the kind of confidence that comes from years in front of cameras. Behind her, a publicist gave a quick nod, a silent signal that everything was ready. This was supposed to be another controlled appearance, another polished interview to promote her latest project. Across the table, Joy Behar sat in her usual seat, notes neatly stacked, glasses resting low on her nose. She looked relaxed, comfortable, like someone who owned the room. Joy leaned forward with a familiar grin. "Welcome back to The View. It's always great to have you here, Jennifer." Jennifer returned the smile and crossed her legs smoothly. "Thank you, Joy. I love being here." The crowd applauded, some people standing just to get a better look at her. The first few minutes were exactly what viewers expected. They joked about busy schedules, laughed about past performances, and traded compliments that felt safe and predictable. Joy praised Jennifer's work ethic and called her timeless, and Jennifer thanked the show for always supporting her career. The audience reacted on cue, clapping and laughing at the right moments. To anyone watching, it looked like mutual respect, two powerful women sharing the spotlight. It felt light, easy, and friendly. But that calm feeling was thin, and it didn't take much to see the cracks forming underneath. If you looked closely, Joy's smile didn't always reach her eyes. Between questions, her jaw tightened for just a second, and her fingers tapped lightly against her notes. In the control room, producers exchanged quick glances and whispered into headsets, preparing for what they called a hard pivot. One camera operator subtly adjusted his angle, ready to zoom in tighter on faces instead of wide shots. At the table, the other co-hosts sensed the shift, but said nothing. They sat up straighter, their body language changing, their expressions growing more cautious. Jennifer noticed it too, even if she didn't react outwardly. Her shoulders stayed relaxed, but her eyes tracked Joy more carefully now. The audience had no idea what was coming. They were still smiling, still clapping, still expecting another smooth celebrity segment. Then Joy leaned forward in her chair, resting her elbow on the table, her tone suddenly more serious. "You've been in this industry a long time, Jennifer," she said. "You've seen how things have changed, especially with cancel culture and public accountability. What do you think about holding powerful people responsible when they mess up?" Jennifer didn't hesitate. She had answered this kind of question dozens of times before. "I believe in accountability," she said calmly. "Everyone should own their mistakes. But I also think we have to be careful about destroying people over rumors or misunderstandings. Not everything needs to become a public execution." Her answer was balanced, safe, and clearly designed not to offend anyone. The audience nodded along, some clapping lightly in agreement. For a moment, it felt like the conversation might stay on that reasonable, neutral track. But Joy wasn't satisfied. She tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing just enough to be noticeable. "That's interesting," she replied, "because lately there's been a lot of talk about how some celebrities seem to get special treatment. Like there are different standards depending on who you are and how famous you are." The words hung in the air. Jennifer kept her composure, but her expression tightened. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said. "I think everyone deserves to be treated fairly, no matter their status." Joy gave a thin smile. "Really? Because I've heard things about people in this business who present one image to the public but act very differently behind closed doors." A quiet ripple moved through the audience. A few people shifted in their seats. Jennifer's publicist off-camera stiffened, leaning forward. Jennifer looked directly at Joy now. If you're talking about something specific, she said firmly, you should just say it. That was the moment Joy crossed the line. Instead of backing off, she leaned in even closer. Okay, let's be direct, she said. There have been rumors about your behavior on set, about how you treat people who work for you. Some sources describe it as difficult, even disrespectful. The studio went completely silent. No laughter, no applause, just the faint hum of equipment and the soft shuffle of feet in the audience. One of the cameras hesitated, slowly zooming in on Jennifer's face, then cutting back to Joy, unsure where to land. Jennifer's eyes flashed with shock, then anger. For the first time since she sat down, her calm mask slipped. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice steady but sharp. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" Joy tried to soften it. "I'm not accusing you. I'm asking you to respond to what's been said." Jennifer straightened in her chair, her jaw tightening. "You're sitting here making vague claims without names, without facts, and calling it a question. That's not fair." The tension in the room spiked instantly. Everyone could feel it. Jennifer didn't raise her voice. She didn't lean back or look away. Instead, she leaned forward, eyes locked on Joy. "Let's be honest," she said. "This isn't about accountability. This is about ratings." A wave of quiet shock moved through the studio. The audience froze, unsure whether to clap or stay silent. The co-hosts went completely stiff, hands folded on the table, eyes darting between the two women like they were watching a car crash in slow motion. Jennifer kept going. "You brought me here to promote my work, then tried to ambush me with rumors on live television. That's not journalism. That's manufactured drama." Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Jennifer cut in again, sharper this time. "If you want to question my character, then do it properly. Don't hide behind vague hints and pretend you're being responsible." Joy tried to regain control. "I'm just asking questions that people are already talking about," she said quickly. "There are reports." Jennifer raised her hand. "No, stop right there. What reports?" Joy hesitated. "There are anonymous sources who—" Jennifer didn't let her finish. "Anonymous sources don't mean anything if you can't back them up. Where are the names? Where are the examples? Where is one real person willing to stand behind these claims?" The room grew heavier with every second. Joy flipped a page on her notes, then another. Her fingers moved fast, but her eyes showed panic. Jennifer pushed harder. "You brought this up on air, so let's verify it on air. Name one person. Just one. Who is saying this?" Joy swallowed. "I can't reveal sources. That's not how this works." Jennifer shook her head slowly. "That's exactly the problem. You're repeating gossip and calling it accountability. That's not brave. That's lazy." The audience reacted with low murmurs and scattered gasps. The power in the room had shifted. For the first time, Joy wasn't in control. Joy's hands began to shake as she gripped her papers tighter. Her voice rose, defensive and strained. "How dare you question my integrity?" she snapped. "I've been in this business for decades. I know how this works." But the confidence in her tone was cracking. Jennifer stayed calm, almost painfully calm. "Experience doesn't excuse reckless behavior," she replied. "If you're going to challenge someone, you better come with facts." Joy leaned forward, her face turning red. "You celebrities think you're untouchable," she said. "You think success means you can demand special treatment." Jennifer didn't flinch. "Having standards isn't entitlement," she said. "It's professionalism. I expect respect on set because I give respect. That's how real work gets done." Joy laughed bitterly, the sound uneven. "That's not what I've heard," Jennifer answered instantly. "From who? You still haven't named anyone?" The audience started reacting more openly now. Gasps echoed across the studio. A few people in the front row pulled out their phones, holding them low, but recording anyway. In the control room, producers were shouting over each other, debating whether to cut to commercial. Then someone yelled that viewership numbers were climbing fast. The decision was made. Keep rolling. Let it play out. Back at the table, Joy's voice cracked mid-sentence. "You don't get to come on my show and talk down to me," she said, louder now, almost shouting. Jennifer met her intensity without matching it. "I'm not talking down to you," she said. "I'm holding you to the same standard you tried to hold me to." That hit harder than any insult. Joy froze for half a second, eyes wide, then looked away, breathing fast. The humiliation loop had started. Every attempt Joy made to regain control only made things worse. The audience could feel it. The tension was no longer building. It had exploded, and now it was burning out of control in front of millions of viewers. Joy had already lost control of the room, but instead of slowing down, she pushed harder. Her voice dropped into a sharp, cutting tone. "You put on this perfect image," she said, staring straight at Jennifer. "The hard-working mom, the loving family woman. But let's be real. You don't seem to have a problem using your family when it helps your brand." The studio froze. Even the faint background noise seemed to disappear. The co-hosts stopped moving. The audience stopped breathing. Jennifer's posture stiffened instantly. Her eyes darkened, and her expression changed from controlled anger to something colder and more dangerous. Jennifer leaned forward slowly. When she spoke, her voice was low and steady, almost quiet, but every word landed hard. "You crossed a line you cannot walk back," she said. "My family is not a prop for your ratings game. My children are not talking points for your show." Joy tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out nervous and thin. "Oh, please, I'm just pointing out hypocrisy." Jennifer shook her head. "No, you're showing exactly who you are. When you can't win an argument, you go personal. When you lose control, you attack people's families." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "That's not accountability. That's desperation." Then Jennifer turned the spotlight back on Joy with brutal precision. "And let's talk about your pattern," she continued. "How many women have sat in this chair and left feeling smaller because you tried to tear them down? How many guests have you challenged in ways that magically turn into public humiliation?" A ripple moved through the audience. Some people nodded. Others gasped. Jennifer didn't stop. "You don't hold people accountable. You build moments that damage reputations for entertainment. You don't create conversations. You destroy careers and call it bold television." The audience erupted into scattered applause mixed with stunned silence. Joy's face drained of color. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The damage was immediate and visible. In front of millions of viewers, her image cracked wide open. There was no going back from this. Joy finally found her voice again, but it was louder, sharper, and full of panic. "You don't get to lecture me on my own show," she shouted. "I've earned this seat. I've been doing this longer than you've been famous." Jennifer didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Time in the business doesn't make you professional," she replied. "How you treat people does. And what you just did wasn't journalism, wasn't fair, and definitely wasn't respectable." That was the breaking point. Joy's hands shot up to her ear. She ripped the earpiece out and threw it down on the table. "I'm done," she yelled. "I'm not sitting here to be disrespected. I quit. I quit this show." The studio exploded into noise. Gasps, shouting, confused reactions all blended together. The camera followed Joy as she stood up and stormed away from the table. Behind the scenes, producers were yelling into headsets, voices overlapping, trying to regain control of the broadcast. One shouted to cut the feed. Another shouted to keep rolling. No one agreed. On set, the co-hosts remained frozen, hands still on the table, eyes wide, completely unsure what to do next. Joy marched past the stage lights and into the hallway, heels echoing loudly on the floor. The camera caught her disappearing behind the curtain, leaving the set in chaos. Back at the table, Jennifer remained seated, shoulders steady, expression calm. The contrast was shocking. One woman had just detonated her career on live television. The other hadn't even raised her voice. The show was still on air, but nothing felt normal anymore. The studio was silent, confused, and unstable, and no one knew what would happen next. The moment Joy disappeared backstage, the internet exploded. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were everywhere. Short videos of Jennifer calling out the ambush spread across social platforms, racking up millions of views in real time. Hashtags started climbing the trending charts, some mocking Joy's meltdown, others praising Jennifer for staying calm under fire. News networks began replaying the footage on loop, freezing frames on Joy ripping out her earpiece and Jennifer's cold stare across the table. Headlines didn't hold back. Words like humiliated, collapsed, and on-air disaster flashed across screens. Commentators argued non-stop. Some defended Joy, but most agreed on one thing. This wasn't just a bad interview. It was a public breakdown, broadcast live to the world. Inside the network, panic set in fast. Emergency meetings were called before the show even finished airing. Executives crowded into conference rooms, phones buzzing non-stop with calls from advertisers and partners. Sponsors wanted answers. Some threatened to pull ads if the situation wasn't handled immediately. Staff members began leaking behind-the-scenes details to reporters, painting a picture of growing tension around Joy long before the explosion. Stories surfaced about past confrontations, heated meetings, and complaints that had been quietly ignored. The narrative was shifting quickly. What started as one ugly argument was turning into a wider conversation about behavior, power, and accountability inside the show itself. The pressure was building, and everyone could feel it. While all of this was happening, Jennifer said nothing. No emergency interviews, no emotional statements, no social media posts. Her team declined every request, choosing instead to let the footage speak for itself. That silence became its own statement. Every replay, every headline, every viral clip worked in her favor without her lifting a finger. People watched the exchange again and again, forming their own opinions, and slowly, a public verdict began to settle in. The audience wasn't just reacting emotionally anymore. They were deciding who had control, who had lost it, and who walked away with their reputation intact. When the dust finally settled, the contrast was impossible to ignore. Joy walked into that studio with institutional power. She had the chair, the microphone, the platform, and the home field advantage. For years, that seat had given her authority. But Jennifer didn't need the chair to control the moment. She took control by refusing to play the same game. Instead of shouting, she demanded clarity. Instead of panicking, she exposed weakness. In a space designed to favor the host, she flipped the balance simply by staying composed and direct. What happened on that stage wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a clash of approaches. On one side, ambush-style questioning built on rumors and vague claims. On the other, a direct challenge for facts, names, and accountability. Joy's emotions spiraled upward, louder and messier with every exchange. Jennifer's stayed steady, controlled, and focused. One collapsed under pressure. The other used the pressure to tighten her grip on the narrative. That difference is what the audience responded to most. People didn't just see an argument. They saw a power shift happening in real time. Back on set, after the chaos faded and the noise settled, Jennifer sat back in her chair. She adjusted her blazer, took a small breath, and looked around the table. The studio lights dimmed slightly as producers tried to regain control of the broadcast. Then she spoke again, calmly, almost casually. "So, should we talk about my project now?" The line landed harder than any insult. It wasn't just confidence, it was dominance through composure. In that quiet moment, the reversal was complete. The host had walked out. The guest remained in control. This wasn't just a celebrity argument, it was a live demonstration of how power collapses the moment it loses credibility. If you watched this moment all the way to the end, You already know this wasn't just entertainment. It was a real power shift happening live on television. Subscribe now for more explosive celebrity confrontations, shocking on-air moments, and stories that expose what really happens behind the cameras. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown, the next showdown, and the next truth bomb.